Hello there! Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much, and I'm so delighted you've joined me for part 2 of our story. So let's continue with it, shall we? After we'd said our goodbyes to my parents, giggling from having drunk far too much champagne, we both dialed up Justin's mother Jackie to tell her our great news, and her less than enamoured reaction sobered us up from the champagne pretty fast, let me tell you. She was quick to put a spoiler on things, but I think Justin had expected as much. "Mum," said Justin, "you'll never believe what I've gone and done. Brace yourself, because you're going to have quite the shock." "Don't do that to me, love. You're scaring me, talking like this. You're not in trouble, are you? You haven't gone and done something stupid. Why do I have this ominous feeling that you've done just that?" "Nothing like that, Mum. You can relax. I've just got married to a beautiful woman called June. You've never met her before, but she's gorgeous in every sense of the word. And right now, I'm the luckiest man in the entire world." "You've what?" came Jackie's cracked voice. The poor woman sounded as if there was a golf ball stuck in the back of her throat, as she tried to digest what Justin was telling her. "Mum, I've got married. To be precise, I got married exactly an hour and 20 minutes ago. We got married at a chapel in Vegas, June and I." At this, Justin let out a couple of burps and a chuckle, because the effervescence of the champagne had gone straight to his head, and he was ever so slightly tipsy, and it certainly showed in his voice. He told his mother all this, while chuckling all the time, as if it was one big funny joke. "Are you drunk, love?" came her mother's voice. "You sound as if you're half cut, if you don't mind my saying so." "No, I'm not drunk, Mum. Happy and a little tipsy, that's all. And I'm enjoying the champagne in my hotel suite with my beloved wife. I'm a married man, Mum. Can you believe that? I can hardly believe it myself." "Is this some kind of seriously warped joke, Justin? Because if it is, I don't find it remotely funny. I'm getting older these days, and I'm much more fragile than I used to be. Joking like this is going to literally give me a heart attack, and you've been warned, son." "Mum, it's no joke. I wouldn't joke with you like this. That would be a rather unfortunate thing to do. I'm in Vegas here with June. We got married here. We're going to celebrate with a special dinner, a romantic dinner, and some fabulously exciting shows. But we wanted to call you with our great news. I'm thrilled to be married, absolutely thrilled. Don't worry, we'll have lots of photographs to show you. June looks amazing. Well, she did look amazing, and she still does, in the pastel green dress she wore. Probably the cheapest wedding dress you ever saw on record. But you wouldn't guess it, because I'm telling you she looked incredible. It was such a special occasion. I'm so deliriously happy, Mum. This is the best thing I have ever done in my entire life." "You got married? Are you insane, Justin? How long have you actually known this June woman that you talk about? Did she put you up to this, so that she could snag you for herself? I know the type only too well. Son, you are terribly naive as far as women are concerned. There are some sharks out there, let me tell you, eager to prey on a strappingly handsome man like yourself." "No, Mum, she didn't put me up to this. I was the one who asked her to marry me, not the other way round. We've been living together for over 6 months now. Remember when I spoke to you, I mentioned to you I'd met someone." "Yes, you said something about having met a lovely lady, but you were so terribly vague, son. I had no idea it was remotely serious. I thought you were just having fun with this lady. You've had lots of girlfriends over the years, have you not?" "I'm sorry, Justin, but 6 months is frivolously ridiculous. How can you possibly know someone in such a short space of time? I'll tell you this, you can't. This June woman is bound to have shown you her good side. But have you encountered her dark side yet? I doubt it very much. Everybody has a dark side, Justin. What possessed you to marry her so impulsively like this? Oh, my goodness. You didn't, did you? Did you knock her up and decide to do the chivalrous thing in marrying her? Don't wallpaper over the cracks, Justin. Tell me the absolute truth. I'm your mother and I deserve to know. And whatever mess you got yourself ensnared in, we can sort this out for you, I promise. Of course not, Mum. I married June because I love her. And no, I didn't knock her up. We love each other, Mum. That's why we got married. Is that so hard to understand? And you never thought to introduce me to this woman? You didn't even think it wise to discuss this nonsensical idea of yours with me before taking this outrageous leap of faith. You're just like your late father, Justin. You really are. I despair with you at times. I really do. This is the sort of outrageous, stupid, ignorant kind of thing your father would have done all those years ago. Good job he had me to steer his decision-making in safer waters, because your father could get himself entangled into some messy scrapes, believe me. Justin, I hate to say this, but you rush into things without stopping to think of the repercussions of some of your choices. What about the time you insisted I brought you a grand piano because you wanted to learn to play it? I told you you needed to think about it long and hard. You told me you were dead set on learning the piano, that you hadn't wanted to do anything more in your entire life. And what happened? The following week you were interested in playing the guitar and had lost all interest in playing the piano. And what did I do? I had to keep a grand piano in my home, and nobody has been playing it since. It's been gathering dust for all these years. That's how wretchedly impulsive you are, love. And you've been like that all your life. There is nothing new under the sun as far as you're concerned. This is different, Mum, and you know it is. I really love June, and I know we're going to make our marriage work. Well, I hope for your sake, love, you do, because now you've made your bed, you're going to have to lie in it, aren't you? But for the record, I do know an excellent divorce attorney that can get you out of this mess. You know you can come to me about anything, love, and don't be ashamed to admit you've made a mistake. I won't judge you for it. Mum, did you not hear a single word I said? I really love June. I'm very happy we got married. And the last thing in the world I want is to get a divorce from her, so no thanks, I won't be requiring your fabulous attorney. It's so typical of you, Mum, to blow ice-cold water over our special day like this and try and ruin it for us. I knew you would do this. It's so typical of you. Well, I don't know what to say, Justin, in the circumstances. I'm not going to apologise for expressing my true feelings on this matter. For once in my life, I am completely lost for words. I'm sorry, Mum, that this has come as a shock to you. You could say that, love. I mean, with your track record with women, what makes you believe that June, well, this woman you married, is any better than all your other girlfriends? None of them were ever good enough for you, Justin, as far as I was concerned. That's what you would say, Mum, because no one is ever good enough for me, in your biased opinion. You're my mother. You put me up on a pedestal. You think everybody compared to me is a lower form of pond life, and it's not true at all. That's because it is true, love. That's where you're wrong. The appalling girls you used to bring home over the years to meet me, well, there are no words to describe them. I hope this new wife of yours dresses halfway decent and doesn't let it all hang out like your last girlfriend did. Oh, that woman was so dreadful. Mum, Karen wasn't that bad. You're exaggerating. Wasn't that bad? Are you kidding me, Justin? The dress she wore to that party, with everything hanging out, was a complete embarrassment to me. She said it was the fashion to wear a dress that barely covered her breasts. What on earth was she thinking? I was so embarrassed I didn't know where to look. I don't know what's wrong with some people in your generation, Justin. No self-respect, no modesty whatsoever. I was utterly ashamed and appalled. It was like you'd brought a whore back home with you. God only knows what my friends must have thought. Thank God you had the sense to break up with her. That's all I can say. For your information, Mum, I didn't break up with Karen. She broke up with me. It was the other way round. And do you know why she ended things with me? Because she said if dating me meant being around you, she wanted nothing more to do with me. She said you were constantly patronizing, interfering with her, talking down to her. Mum, you've been responsible for scaring away half my girlfriends. You lay into them so hard. You make it perfectly clear you dislike them. I didn't want you to sabotage my relationship with June. That's the reason why I never brought her home to meet you, if you must know. I knew that no one would ever meet your exacting standards. That is ridiculous, love. I'm only ever looking out for you as your mother. I want the very best for you, Justin. I always have and always will, if the truth be told. I'm very disappointed in you. I'm your mother. I would have liked to have had a say in this matter, and would have been there on your big day if I could have been. Did you not stop to think about that for a moment, leaving me out of all of this? When you got married, I was hoping it would be a grand affair. We could have had a fabulous ceremony and celebration, and you've taken all that away from me. You're my only son, and I would have liked to celebrate your getting married. Mum, as I keep saying, we didn't want anything excessively extravagant, flamboyant, or expensive. And knowing you, if I had had a wedding at home, it would have been exactly that. Over the top, if you know what I mean. We just wanted a private affair, a quiet ceremony, just the two of us in Vegas. And we did just that. We're staying here at the Bellagio and having a wonderful time. Of course, it's very, very expensive. But you only get married once. We did this for ourselves, Mum. So what is this girl's maiden name? You say her first name is June? June Gregor. June Gregor. Where is she from? She's from Bloomington, in Indiana City. You know, it's southwest of Indianapolis. And I think she went to the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. So where exactly did you meet her? I met her in a coffee shop in Bloomington, because I work here, and rent a flat here, as you know, with two friends. Well, at least you met her in a civilized place. A coffee shop is not a bad place to meet someone. When am I going to meet this new wife of yours, Justin? Soon. Well, I'm very glad to hear it, love. As I looked back on the telephone call Justin had made to his mother, only an hour and a half after we got married, I was even less inclined to want to meet her, let alone live with the woman. She sounded as hard as nails, ruthlessly calculating, and clearly incredibly judgmental. What on earth would I have in common with her? Look, sweetheart, said Justin encouragingly, fixing his kind eyes on me. I know it wasn't easy to listen to that phone call that we made after we got married. We probably shouldn't have phoned her that day. My mother had a shock, that's all. The last thing she expected was me to go off to Vegas and tie the knot with a woman she's never met. You need to make some allowances for her. Well, her less than agreeable reaction. Put yourself in her place for a moment. Her only son clandestinely gets married to a woman she's never met. It must have been a bitter pill to swallow for her at the best of times. You see, my mother, June, she'd have loved to have gone over the top over my wedding, made a big fuss about the whole thing. And I've denied her all that. Well, I suppose it wouldn't have been easy for her to hear our news. Even my parents were confounded and a bit disappointed that we didn't have a grand ceremony. There you go, then, said Justin. I think my mother would have liked to have indulged us with a big flashy wedding. Lots of fuss, no expense spared, as I was saying. So this has been a bolt out of the blue for her. Your parents were reasonably cool about everything, because they're easy-going folk. But I'm afraid my mother is anything but easy-going. She's very intense, highly strung, and obsessed by you, I said, finishing my husband's sentence for him. You said yourself that we should get married in Vegas because of your mother's shipwrecking ways. When it comes to previous relationships that you've had with women, now you want us to live with her. Have you gone completely mad? How is it for the life of me that this is ever going to work? Sweetheart, as I keep reiterating, it won't be for long. It's just a stopgap, that's all. I'm just being practical here. I'm an accountant, and I'm very shrewd with figures. If we rent a place, it's going to cost us a lot of money. And we won't get anything very big. It makes perfect sense to stay with my mother for the short term. She can help you during your pregnancy, and with the baby when it's born, while we build up a nice little nest egg for ourselves. My mother lives in this big place all on her own, and I'm sure she would appreciate our company. If my mother had her way, I would never move out. I would live with her permanently. I'm sure it can get very lonely for her living in that big place on her own. It'll be the perfect opportunity for you to get to know her better. You never know, the two of you might really bond. My mother did like one of my exes, you know. She did? You never told me that. Yes, the one woman I dated that I personally couldn't stand was the one my mother actually liked. Isn't that typical? My mother was actually upset when I broke up with her. You're joking! So what did she like about this woman? Well, I suppose Victoria ticked all the boxes for her. Her parents were super wealthy. She was very polished and polite. She'd gone to Harvard University. Was rather snooty. My mother liked that about her. But on the other hand, I did not. So your mother is snooty then? She likes people that come from money, obviously. And I don't come from that kind of affluent background, so she's bound not to like me. Well, maybe you won't tick all her boxes. But when she meets you and sees how happy you make me, I'm sure she'll change her mind about you. Now that you've told me about Victoria, I feel less and less sure that she'll like me at all. Why do I not have a good feeling about all this, Justin? I'm not happy with this one single bit. I don't think I like the idea of your mother interfering in our lives. If we live with her, that's exactly what she will do. Worse still, we'll be beholden to her. It's not going to be comfortable living with 3 people. You know the saying, 2's company, 3's a crowd. I was not remotely comfortable about the prospect of meeting Jackie Bourdain. Justin had told her we were going to move in with her for a short while on a recent telephone call that he'd put on loudspeaker so that I could listen in. Mum, I've got some very, very good news. What is that, son? Tell me. Oh, please don't say. She's not pregnant, is she? Well, we'll talk about that later. But what I wanted to tell you, Mum, is I managed to get a very good accountancy job in Newport. An hour's commute from where you live. So I resigned from my job here in Bloomington. So the good news is we're moving to Oregon, June and I. I didn't think I would get the job, but I did. That is wonderful news, son. Wonderful, wonderful news. Now there are no excuses as far as you're concerned. I expect plenty of visits, and of course to meet this new wife of yours as soon as I possibly can. My friends were absolutely shocked, Justin, when I told them you'd gone off and got married in the way you did. They were so disappointed that there weren't going to be a grand announcement of some sort, and possibly a fancy boutique wedding somewhere exclusive. I hasten to say it was only Verity Napier, you know the one, who thought what you did was utterly romantic. But that stupid woman has her head in the clouds half the time. She spends her life reading Daniel Steele books, and is so far removed from reality it's not true. She still believes in knights riding on black horses coming to rescue the damsels in distress. She goes all mushy about that kind of thing. Well, maybe it's good to be like that, Mum. I like Verity very much. Oh, you would say that, Justin, because like you, that woman is so damn impulsive. So tell me, love, where are you going to live? Well, Mum, me and June have been looking for apartments online. And the ones we can afford, well, they're a little on the small side, if you know what I mean. Even though they try to make apartments look big online, they're not big at all. And they're ridiculously overpriced and very expensive. Most of them in our price range we are looking at barely have enough space to swing a cat. And when I say that, I'm not exaggerating. Well, then why don't you move in with me, love, the both of you? If you're moving to this part of the world with a new job under your belt, it makes perfect sense, does it not? You can start saving almost at once. You won't have any living expenses or food costs if you live with me. It'll be a win-win situation. You'll both be doing me a big favour, as it gets desperately lonely in this big house all on my own. You and June can have the beautiful upstairs suite with the extensive balcony. While you're working, love, what will June be doing? Did she not have a job in Bloomington? What will she do out here? I hope you've considered her needs as well, and not just your own. She has her own business online, Mum. She's only just started it, so it's pretty small at the moment. I don't want her to do much, because here is what I'm going to tell you next. She's pregnant, and she does want to be a full-time mother to her baby, and be around for it, if you know what I mean. There was a big pause at the end of the line, as if Justin's mother had not expected to hear this startling news. I thought you said that you didn't knock this woman up, Justin. Now you tell me she's expecting a baby. This is a big surprise, love. You're talking about her having a baby so casually, as if it's no big deal, but it is, Sutton. Mum, before you get any wild ideas planted into that head of yours, I didn't marry June because I thought she was pregnant. We were clueless that she was pregnant when we got married. We had no idea. It was only while we were staying at the Bellagio that June suddenly remembered she hadn't had a cycle for a while. We decided to go off and get a pregnancy test, and we weren't expecting it to be a positive. We were very surprised when we discovered she was pregnant, but thrilled at the same time. So we celebrated with ice cream. We found out the day after I phoned you to tell you our good news. Well, it sounds awfully convenient to me, son. How do you know this woman didn't get deliberately pregnant, so you'd feel compelled to marry her? You hear about women ensnaring men like this all the time. It's the oldest trick in the book. That was even going on in my day, I'll have you know. I know only too well what women can be like. You know Carly Harper. Now that woman's absolutely impossible. You'd never have believed anyone would marry the likes of her. The woman is an ugly toad, and is so unattractive she looks like a bullfrog with those wide eyes of hers. Now, of course, she's ballooned so much she looks like she swallowed an entire river. She snagged her man by getting pregnant. That poor husband of hers has been saddled with her ever since and looks so miserable. But that man would not say boo to a goose. He's completely under her thumb. I saw the sad man at the supermarket recently, with a long list in his hands, obviously given to him by Carly. You cannot believe the garbage he was buying for her. High sugar, high fat, that kind of stuff. And enough Tom and Jerry's ice cream to sink the Titanic. It was all for her, you know. If she carries on this way, she'll need the fire brigade to help her out of the house every day. Mum, don't be like that. June did not entice me to marry her. It was the other way round, as I keep saying. I'm delighted June is pregnant, and I'm excited that you're going to be a grandmother, and I hope you are too. Justin, you can hardly expect me to be excited about this news of yours when you spring it on me out of the blue like this. It is very hard to digest, you know. You've got to see things from my perspective, love. You vaguely announce you're seeing someone who you met at a coffee shop in Bloomington. I don't take you very seriously because you don't sound serious about it. And then not only do you go and marry this woman on a trip to Vegas, but now she's expecting your baby. How do you think I'm going to take it? As I reflected on my husband's conversation with his mother, I did feel rather bemused. I had no idea how Jackie Bourdain was going to treat me once we moved into her house. I felt apprehensive about the matter. It had been tough leaving Bloomington, where I'd lived all my life, and saying goodbye to my parents, who were delighted that I was now pregnant. Why do you have to move away, love? My mother had cried. It's just that Justin's got a job closer to home. He loves that part of the world. That's a maybe, love, my mother had said. I do appreciate the Oregon coast is exquisite, and I can fully understand that. I've been there myself. But living with his mother, isn't that a little tough going for the both of you? I'm not sure it's a promising start for any marriage. I personally wouldn't advise it. I hadn't told my mother about what a pugnaciously capricious woman Jackie Bourdain actually was, because it would only serve to worry her. I just reassured her that everything would be absolutely fine. But in reality I felt very disconcerted about moving to a brand new state, into my husband's mother's house, I was not looking forward to this move. I had wanted to stay in Bloomington, but Justin talked about his old life in Oregon with such a wistful nostalgia, and I found myself warming to the idea of living in a brand new state. The long, laborious road trip from Bloomington to Justin's mother's house was close to 34 hours, so we did enjoy a couple of much-needed overnight stops along the way. By the time we reached the Oregon coast, I couldn't wait to get out and stretch my legs. "Nearly there, sweetheart," said Justin, giving me a big cheesy grin. It was at this crucial point that I had to ready myself to meet Jackie Bourdain. I glanced briefly at my rather bedraggled reflection in the mirror. I had certainly looked better. I felt sweaty from the road trip. There were dark circles under my eyes from lack of sleep. The jeans I was wearing looked as if they had been slept in for a couple of days. I was beyond caring what Jackie Bourdain's first impressions of me would be. I was Justin's new wife, and if she didn't like me, that was going to be tough. Come hell or high water, I was not going to let this woman undermine me in any way. But my newly found confidence wore thin as Justin's SUV wound up a hilly incline, where grand-looking homes basked in the sunshine, overlooking a fabulous ribbon of beach. I opened my window to allow a cool breeze to fill our car with the smell of salty brine. A couple of seagulls flew right past us, screeching loudly, and it suddenly gave me that holiday feeling. The coast was exquisite, as the undulating waves thundered to the shoreline, their edges framed by the white lacy frilliness of the sea foam. The long sweeps of golden beach and sculptural rock stretched out forever, and I could see wood groves full of tall, lofty trees clustered together like vast congregations of people at a sports stadium. Jackie Bourdain's house was exactly as Justin had described, only a lot more ostentatious and grandiose than I had actually anticipated, so it naturally set my nerves on edge. The house was very modern and looked like it had been designed by a cutting-edge architect. It could only mean one thing, that Justin's mother was an extremely wealthy woman, probably the kind of socialite that went to charity functions and mixed with some of society's most elite. A woman like Jackie would probably look down on the likes of someone like me, I couldn't help but think. Everything about my origins was humble, and say what you like, but in my personal opinion, inverted snobbery here in America is very much alive and well, especially among the rich and famous. As we parked our car outside the front entrance of Jackie's house, a modern-looking front door swung wide open, and there in the doorway stood Jackie Bourdain. I was almost afraid to look at her, as bashfully I waited patiently for Justin to climb out of the car and to open my car door, which he did. I climbed out of the car nervously, sensing that Jackie Bourdain's hawk-like eyes were giving me a fleeting once-over, but I still refused to meet her gaze, as I was suddenly feeling dreadfully self-conscious and vulnerable. So much for my former confidence that seemed to have melted away on my arrival. The intimidating place that was so out of my league made me feel rather like a fish out of water. With his arms around my back, Justin directed me to the front door. Jackie Bourdain barely acknowledged me as she flung her arms around her beloved son. "Oh, Justin, my darling boy! It's so good to see you, love. It's been so dreadfully long, far too long. I have missed you so much." Justin slapped his mum on the back affectionately. "It's good to see you too, Mum. It has been too long." He then turned to look at me, gave me an encouraging wink, and pushed me forwards so that his mother could take a long, hard look at me. "This is June, Mum, my wife." "And so it is, I see," said Jackie Bourdain. Her sharp blue eyes bored into mine, and the smile on her face did not meet her cold, calculating eyes that were studying me as if I was a rare zoological specimen in a laboratory. "It's good to meet you, June, and I understand congratulations are in order." She offered me her hand, giving it a formal handshake, as any affection she obviously reserved for Justin only. What did I think of her on first impressions? That is a hard question to have to answer. I certainly didn't warm to her immediately, because Jackie Bourdain was as cold as a fish. It goes without saying that Jackie Bourdain was incredibly elegant and very well put together. The best way to describe her was that she was posh. I witnessed a disapproving expression flash across her face when she took in my crumpled appearance after our long, exhausting road trip. Jackie Bourdain would probably be one of those infuriating people that after a similar journey would look like she'd stepped out of a bandbox. Jackie Bourdain looked sensational in her outfit, her hair superbly styled, and as cutting-edge and modern as the style of her home. Her hair was a mix of several shades of blonde tones, peppered with a hint of strawberry, and the style was rather fetching on her. I expected she was a Botox queen, because she couldn't wrinkle her forehead, and her peachy complexion was in a perfect condition. Jackie was probably in her late 50s, and was a handsome woman. I imagine in her youth she was probably quite the head-turner. Her slender figure was neatly proportioned, and almost ballerinic, as she stood up with a straight deportment, as if she was about to do a plie. She was wearing a designer pair of navy blue chinos, stylishly pleated in the front, a gold-buckled belt that looked as if it cost a fortune, and a navy blue silk shirt with a pair of Tiffany pearls around her neck. She was wearing zooty gold and navy sandals, and was showing off a perfect manicure on a pair of pretty feet, which were painted in a coral shade. The woman was stylish in every sense of the word, but she was also pretty aloof. It was in the days that followed I got to learn all about Jackie Bourdain. In the beginning she observed me rather cautiously. On the first evening I had spent at her home, I had been so desperately uncomfortable, as she'd served up her evening meal to us on the cherrywood dining-room table that had been elegantly laid with only the finest linen, and the most opulent dinner service. The food had been brought to the table by a very attentive Filipino cook. It had been absolutely mouth-watering delicious, with exotic flavours like lemongrass and coriander in the pad thai. Then there was sticky rice pudding served with mango that was to die for. I was to learn that Jackie had a big thing about Thai food. She absolutely adored it. "This looks delicious, Mrs. Bourdain," I had said. "Please call me Jackie, dear." "This looks delicious, Jackie." "Well, I'm afraid I can't take credit for the delicious food in this house, much as I would like to. Annika does a wonderful job cooking, you know, managing this large house of mine for me. I wouldn't know how to cope without her. I've never cooked anything a day in my life," she told me proudly, as if this was a fact that should be celebrated. "You've never cooked anything?" I asked, looking at Jackie perturbed. "Surely you can make toast and stuff like that. Basic stuff, I mean." "No, I can't, dear. I've been very fortunate, June, my dear. Swaddled in comfort every day of my life. My parents were very wealthy, you see. And growing up, they always had a cook and a cleaner. So I never learned to cook. All I had to do was ask them for a cake or something, and they'd bake it for me. I don't even know how to boil an egg," she gloated, as if in some way not cooking made her a superior human species, when all I could do was feel sorry for her, because whether she knew it or not, she was seriously missing out big time on a very rewarding creative outlet. Some wealthy people didn't get that. They loved having things done for them all the time, but that, in my opinion, lowered their quality of life, whether they knew it or not. "That is such a pity, Jackie. You're really missing out," I said. "Cooking is creative, you know. You may think it's a laborious chore, but that's where you're wrong. It can be great fun to be able to cook. If I've had a bad day or something, there's nothing more satisfying than throwing an interesting dish together, being inventive with flavours. It's a rewarding feeling, especially when the meal turns out to be a great success. And if it's a flop, well, you learn from your mistakes, don't you?" "Is that what you call it, June, dear?" she said condescendingly. "A creative outlet? So I take it you must thoroughly enjoy cooking in an explorative way. Is that right, June? I must admit you do look the type that is not adverse to getting your hands dirty, or breaking a fingernail or two," she said, looking disapprovingly at my short, half-bitten fingernails. "Well, yes, I suppose I do enjoy getting my hands dirty. Nothing wrong with that, Jackie. You have a great manicure, but it doesn't do any harm letting your hair down from time to time. Like a kid in a sandpit. You should try it sometime." "Me personally, I don't like to get my hands dirty. Never have and never will," said Jackie, making a face. "I like to leave the manual labour to the servants, and that's the way it should always be." So there we are. That's the end of part 2 of our story. Part 3 is tomorrow night. I look forward to you joining me then. Until next time, goodbye and good night.